So every time I have to discuss the topic of digital, I'm reminded of Professor Jean W. Ross, who pronounces the word in a very special way in her interviews. And more importantly, I'm reminded of how she differentiates digitalization from digitization. We'll probably talk about that in this call. We have many efforts, a lot of news around efforts of African governments to digitize or digitalize among all the complex problems we have in Africa and the promises to solve those problems with technology. I wrote an article on that you might have seen. Today, we're going to hone in the subject of digitalization and digitization on small businesses, asking ourselves what digital means to them. With me are Sikemi Tayo and John Kofi Annan. We're going to get to know them better after this brief break. Look forward to a wonderful conversation. Share the link, subscribe to us, and see you very shortly. All right, welcome to United Africa. And I have with me both John and Sikemi. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm looking forward to a wonderful conversation, right? Great. Thumbs up. All right. Okay, first of all, I'm going to ask, yes, John, great to see you, John. I'm going to ask the simple basic question. And for those of us who are watching us live on YouTube, on LinkedIn, you can just announce yourself where you're watching from and what you hope to gain from this conversation. I'm going to ask ladies first. I'm going to expect that you will just tell us a bit about yourself. Then you will make a comment about this interesting question. If a small business owner were to ask you, what does it mean to do business digitally? Why should I care, right? How would you answer that question? Do that. Share that with us after introducing yourself. Sikemi.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is Sikemi dialing in from Lagos, Nigeria, and I'm happy to be part of this conversation. I am the Chief Technology and Operations Officer for KitWorks Innovation, and I help technical organizations to achieve predictable operations. Right? And that is really one of the bedrock of every business operations, right? And it's a very good question you've posed to me, Kenneth, around what digital means to a business, whether you're a small business or whether you are a growing business. Digital is simply converting your everyday data into what we call, well, I don't want to call it zeros and ones because that would get really technical, but moving from paper to system. And I know that it sounds very straightforward, but it's also not that straightforward because most people just assume that digital is, instead of taking notes on my jotter, I now take notes on my iPad. Instead of taking notes on a full scalp sheet, for those of you that know what that is, I now take it on my computer. But it goes beyond that. It is also making sure that you capture that information in a way that is going to be useful for you in the future. If you cannot use the information in the future, then as far as I'm concerned, you're not digital. I don't know what you just did, but that is not digital. So that is why it's also important. And that's why when you mentioned the difference between digital and digitalization, it underscores that the usefulness of the data. What are you doing with the data? That actually plays a very big role in how you position yourself as a digital business or not. Again, why should you care? Hopefully I answered the first one. What is digital? And why should you care as a small or medium scale business? If you want to scale, and there are different ways to look at scale. Scale could be the number of products that you are doing or offering. Scale could be the number of communities, cities, countries that you're going into. Scale could mean the number of customers that you're servicing. As long as you want to grow your business, the only way to grow sustainably, you can grow painfully, but the only way to grow sustainably is to digitize your operations. That will be my response to that question. Let me know if I did well or if I missed anything.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Shikemi. That's very
Okay.
simple, very straightforward definition, and digital positions us to scale. So let's turn over to John. John does a lot of work in the digital space, and I'd like you to first of all tell us who you are, what you do briefly, and then respond to this question. If I were to ask you, why should I, as a small business, care about digital? What does it mean to me as a small business, and why should I care? Go ahead, John.
Okay, when we look at the world in general, we have moved from stages upon stages upon stages into um, this kind of. At first, we could see that before you could even make a write-up, or before they write in the ancient days, they use stones and they write with stones and all that. And then it got to a time we got the inventions come up, like we have the radio, the television, we have the paper, the newspapers, we have the reading books, and all these things have been the stages of transformation. At first, organizations use fax machines. I remember those days before you send a message or a letter to a business in US, you go to a fax machine before they will process your information to the organization at the other side of the world. Then it got to the extent we had um, it came to the computer. Well, those days we call it Yahoo. So you have Yahoo account. You go, you log it. You got your email. You send your emails and all that. That you did not even have a smartphone. So you go to a public communication center, or we call it cafe, where you send your email. You log in. They give you even a time. You buy time. Then once your time is out, you are logged out. Then we moved into an era where even phone calls, we used to have it at the post office or phone booth and all that. But now we got into a stage where we had a small smartphone and small mobile phone. First, it was Motorola, Mobitel, and all those things. Now, these were the stages that businesses, entrepreneurs of that time went through before they could even do business with people outside their jurisdiction. Now it is no longer, let me go and wait at the post office for someone to call or receive a EMS, a letter from the post office, which sometimes could take like 3 months before reaching you. It has gotten to the stage where you can simply, with a click of a button, get your information to the other party you are doing business with, and you can receive a feedback within a twinkle of seconds. Now, looking at the stages that the world has gone through, we have moved from analog system to digital system. And when we talk about digital system, it's just about the smart way of doing business. The smart way of doing business using the appropriate platforms, communicating or reaching out to customers or processing information, doing presentations, signing or processing even money. At first, where there were no banks, we used to receive money at the post office. So these stages have gone through, and businesses have to move from that era where you even expect people to bring you cash to where you just provide your account number and people do what? pay into. And it has also even moved to the level where right now I'm running a course and then somebody comes online and pay for the course with just their card, and I don't need to even see them before they pay. I don't
Wow,
even need to
awesome.
provide my account details before they pay. So from the analog system, we've moved into a digital system. So digital system is just the fastest way of doing business using the internet.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think John has taken us through some of the transformations that have taken place in the way people do business over the past few decades, from what we used to know to what we know now. And I think he has also touched on the different facets of business that has changed by virtue of digital technology, whether it's payments, communication, processing stuff within your business and so forth. Now, I'm going to ask John to tell us about what skills he feels a typical business owner would need to survive, so to speak, or to advance, so to speak, in today's digital world, the skills that are necessary. But before I do that, I'd like to acknowledge those who are joining us online. Thank you, Chooks Dems, CEO of Erito Food Store, a brand of Erito Business Ventures. We'd like to know more about that. Erito, what does that mean? And how do you operate? How digital are you? Thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us. She says, great to be here. My name is Elizabeth Boateng from Lagos, Nigeria. I help entrepreneurs and career professionals with their marketing and admin tasks so that they can focus on the core of their job. And I'm sure you're doing that digitally. We'd like to hear more about that. Yetunde says, Yetunde Macaulay from Nigeria, senior team lead at My Dream Connect. Realize your dreams with Yetunde. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're just joining us, this is Unity Africa. Make sure you're subscribed and do introduce yourself in the chat. So let's turn back again to John and let's expand this conversation very quickly with these different or these diverse facets of digitalization or digitization you've mentioned: payments, finance, keeping your money, processing things within your organization, workflows, and even communication. What would you say? Let's say based on your courses and your training, what would you say are the core, maybe top 5 skills anyone who is running a business today would need in order to join the bandwagon of digital transformation, if you may say? John?
Okay, one of the key skills, 5. I would say one, the bone of every, the flow of every business is marketing. So for me, at the top of it is digital marketing. Every business need to learn how to market their business digitally. So they have to make sure they are using the appropriate platforms like the social media, the digital channels, all the channels that are appropriate for marketing. They should make sure that they have at least they have fair knowledge about it and they have mastered the skills of digital marketing. Then it comes to, you can't do business without not having knowledge in analytics. So it's good to have skills in data analytics, business intelligence. Data analytics and business intelligence, very important. Then you can't take away cybersecurity, securing your digital frontiers. So you can't take away cybersecurity out of it. Then in terms of internal structures, there are software that one need to use for finance, for HR. You can have EMS, enterprise resource, any software that will help you have a smooth running of business. So you need that skills also, managing your resources, and then also basically getting skills for virtual assistants or virtual jobs. What is very important is that as an entrepreneur, you should be also have this mindset of outsourcing some of your responsibilities. So you don't even need to have people come into the organization to come and work and you see them and you pay them. No, you can actually hire people from all over the world. They will do the small tasks for you and then you can get them paid. And that is what is happening. So you can get virtual assistants or virtual workers or activate remote outsourcing or job systems. And then another key area that is very important is finance. It's finance. How you can manage the flow of your resources,
Okay, great.
finance, and all that. So you will need a skill in at least software that's how to do finance. Something
Great.
like P3, you can use QuickBooks and all that. You need those skills. And then for branding, which comes under digital marketing, as an entrepreneur, you need skills in at least graphic designing, how to craft your own content, and all those things. Like there are some days as an entrepreneur, you don't need to always need to outsource something to someone, or you need to work on something as quick as possible. And then you are now going to look for somebody to do that or send an information to your staff who might be sleeping to do that. If you have these skills, you can easily do them at home.
Awesome. Wow, this is like a whole university of entrepreneurship right now. I like that. So we've talked about from marketing to data analytics. You know, the moment John mentioned data analytics, I said, "What?" It sounded like some big thing for a small business, and we're going to dive deep into how that can be done in the context of the emerging entrepreneur. And then you talked about branding. You've talked about financial management, which and then you mentioned some typical software form. You talked about being able to outsource virtual, outsource jobs basically, and that is telework, so to speak, or remote work. Now, I'm going to turn over to the audience. You've listened for a few minutes. Can you tell me, if you are in the audience, something that has struck you in terms of how you can change the way you do business just by the few things you've heard today? What is striking you? What is catching your attention if you're a business owner out there? Dixon says, "Great to be here. I'm from Atan Ota, Ogun State, Nigeria. I'm a science teacher and entrepreneur. I'm presently undergoing a nylon recycling training." Great one. Thank you so much for joining us. So Sikemi, I'm going to turn to you as the process expert, on the call. And I'm going to ask you now, John has talked about all these massive areas that are facets of digitization. And most people who work in big organizations can identify with them. I think John also even talked about something as serious as an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning platform. So I want to ask you about business and IT alignment. If for example, if you were faced with two different companies, one company is maybe 10 staff, right? Maybe $1,000 a month. And the other company is maybe 5,000 staff, and maybe $1 million a month turnover. How would you differentiate your approach to digitalizing those two separate businesses in terms of, first of all, evaluating their business needs or aligning their processes both now and in the future with what they need in terms of technology? Please share that with us.
All right, thank you, Kenneth. So before I answer that question, I want to pose an analogy to the audience. Now, for a lot of us, we're probably from Nigeria, right? Or from Africa. And a lot of us grew up with a favorite dish from our parents, maybe mother, father, sister, some dish that you just enjoy more than the others, right? Some people even say it's your favorite dish, but let's not even go that far. So there's a local dish that you enjoy. For me, it could be moi moi, right? And that's like steamed beans on this part of the world. Now, if I ask you, how do you make that dish? A lot of you will probably say, okay, so we buy something, we mix something, we turn on the fire, we arrange something, we put salt, we put pepper. chances are that you're going to try to recite the steps from your head. And chances are that if you use those steps the way you've recited them, the food will not come out the way it used to come out
Yeah.
in your house.
Yes.
So the reason why I use this analogy is because as business owners, whether you are big or you're small, you find that this is the same mindset that is operating in the way we work. You start a business, it starts to do well. You've applied a lot of the skills that John has recommended. You are doing marketing, you are doing everything. The thing just feels as if it's not always quite catching it each time. Like some days you will make it, some days you will hit it, some days you will just be like, but I did everything I'm supposed to do, but it's still not, I'm not getting the results that I want, right? So to answer your question, Kenneth, whether you are a small company, whether you are a big company, the foundation of your business success is your process. And the reason why I use that analogy is because most people like to look at process as something very dramatic, maybe Six Sigma, if you're trying to be very technical. This is how I see process. Process is the recipe for producing good results. What are the steps that you are going to follow to produce the kind of results that you've promised your customer? Right? So for a person that is the gentleman that is in the nylon recycling training, your process will start with taking the raw materials. In fact, going to the location where the raw materials are, taking it through a transformation process, and at the end of the day, you have a recycled item. If you don't follow that process consistently, chances are that your recycled item may not always look the same or meet the expected standards. So, dear entrepreneur, even though technology is good, and as a tech person, I am a pro technology user, advocate rather. Technology will not make sense to your business if your process is not clear. I'll say that again. Technology will not make sense to your business if your process is not clear. So how do you fuse your process with technology? You have to start by standardizing the way you do work. Now, there are a couple of ways to standardize. This is where technology too can help you. You can standardize by writing down and having a document. But from my experience, those things, they don't stick, because who remembers to go to one drive or one file cabinet to go and bring out the process for doing business in your in your company? Most likely not. However, what you can do is to translate that process into a platform. So let me still use the recycling example. Imagine that the gentleman wanted to, document or automate or use technology to improve his recycling process. The old school of thought will say, take pen and paper and start writing down the steps one by one. The upgraded school of thought will say, open Word documents and start typing it one by one. My school of thought, after over 10 years of trying to do business management and improvement, says take a system that you use to do your business and put those steps in it. So if the way you receive orders today, it is from let's say Instagram,
WhatsApp.
somebody DMs you, or WhatsApp, somebody DMs you, right? Fantastic. That's the first step. What is the next step? Do you want to, which is why some people don't even recommend chat as a way to digitize. Well, we can open that one as a separate conversation. But there are also automations that you can do today on WhatsApp and Instagram. That even though the person, buzzes you on WhatsApp, it will copy that message into a system and it will open an order for the customer. And then on that system, you can now create your step, confirm order, generate invoice, collect payment, confirm payment. Now call Baba Jide to bring material. Then call somebody to bring something. And then you can just walk through that process on that system. That way, it's not likely that you miss a step. That way, when you finally outsource some of your work to that tele worker or that virtual assistance that John recommended, they would not do it differently than you would have done it as the owner. So this is the best way I've seen to integrate your process and your technology. You cannot just go to QuickBooks, and I did that too as an independent consultant. I went to QuickBooks. I opened that. I was doing orishirishi inside, different things. That's what orishirishi means. And at the end of the day, I had to still take a step back and say, what am I trying to achieve with this QuickBooks? Because after a while, it was not working. It was not giving me the results I wanted. I had to take a step back and first define what do I want to see for my finances, for my business. And then I went back to QuickBooks to make the required changes. So that is my view on how technology can work for you long term. Thank you.
Awesome. That's beautiful. There are two things I could have heard from that, your submission. One is the assumption is that you are already using technology. Now you want to align it. Maybe you're already using WhatsApp because everybody's using WhatsApp. Yeah. You're already using Instagram. And now you want to align it. You want to now create a consistent way of doing your business that includes that technology. So another, someone might argue that means you've assumed that I have already selected my technology. Now, what if I have not selected? How would you evaluate my need and then recommend, okay, at the level where you are, you should be using WhatsApp, or you should be using Instagram, or you should be using an ERP. Do you have very briefly thoughts on that one?
Yes. So unless you are an IT person, meaning that you are either a Kenneth or me, that our past life was spent evaluating this type of documents, I would say please seek help. And help does not always have to be anything dramatic. Sometimes it could be, I want to have a call and ask you a question, and then let me know what you think. It could be, I want to go and take a training with John on how to choose the best digital tool for my business. But please don't try to do it alone. The world of business is constantly changing. Your customers' behavior, they are constantly changing. So trying to do it alone is, I liken it to trying to navigate a dark room by yourself. You may get to the end of the room, but chances are that you will hit your leg on the furniture. You will hit your forehead on the wall. You will eventually get to the end of the room, but there will be a lot of pain and a lot of ouch and a lot of oh crap on the way, right? However, seeking help as somebody turning on the light in that room and saying, okay, the light is now on. This is the furniture, or this is where I'm trying to get to in the room. So my counsel is seek help. There are too many people that have gone ahead of you. There are too many people that have done what you're trying to do. So learn from their experience. If you are a techie person, meaning you understand how to evaluate systems by yourself, then my recommendation is always start with the free version of anything. Always start with the free version, because we are very quick to say, oh, I want to buy premium, but on what grounds? And I'm speaking from experience. I have paid for a lot of premiums that I buy myself. I went to remove the premium and I came back to free, because as somebody that is starting your business, you don't need that much overhead, right, for your technology. Very simple. Collect something, do something, give something. The end. Right? This is not the time to now be doing, I want to do 500 type of currency when you've not even made profit. I'm confused.
Wow. You just reminded me of there was a session yesterday. It was a pitch competition with I think it was Cosmos Innovation Center in Ghana here. And at the end of the long pitch, one of the evaluators asked him, how much have you sold? He starts stammering. He repeats the question, how many have you sold? So bottom line, if you've not sold in Naira, don't start looking for $1 dollar,
Right.
a software that can do dollars, right? So I'm going to
Yeah.
ask John a practical. Thank you very much for that. That's alignment between the
Yeah.
business, the stage where you are. Keep it simple. Start with free versions, and I think Sikemi tilts towards the ideology of you test the solution first, because there are so many, and you can actually test it free and then align it with your business. So I'm going to switch to John and ask you a very quick question. I want you to think about it for a moment while I read some reactions. Now, practically now, many people have come out of your trainings and they're going out to their businesses or to their jobs. I want you to share with us, maybe with examples if possible, how these people are able to switch from the way they were doing business before and start doing it digitally based on the exposure they have to your skills acquisition. So I wanted to take a moment to think about that. I'm just going to read a few comments that came in the chat. And then once you give us insights on that, we'll go in a short break. Let me read Dixon's comment. He says, you are just on point in the area of processing in making things happen, or the steps at Tayo, at Sikemi Tayo. So he's saying that it's like you went through this nylon processing training as well sometime before. All right. Then, yes, Sikemi Udem says, it's great to hear you, sir. Sir John Kofi. It's great to hear Sir John Kofi take us down the route of digitalization. I would love to hint that the era of social media has really impacted on the ease of business transactions. Thank you for sharing that with them. And finally, John says, John, my mentor trainer on digitalization, sir, you're a great man, as most of the training I'm undergoing with you counts, right? I think that counts, Mr. Ken, courtesy of Mr. Kenneth, rather. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, John, let's come to you. When people take away skills from idea, how easy has it been for them to translate it to value in their businesses or in their jobs? Share with us, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Second. I must admit to what Sikemi said concerning processes. Yesterday, someone reached out to me and was telling me about the fact that she needs a business coach and she wants to run business in Ghana. And I said, no. For every business you want to start, at least make sure you have been in the business for at least 5 years, build systems, you've understood the ins and the outs of the business before you start even outsourcing those stuff that you will leave the business behind and go away. Now it all comes back to process. And when it comes to process, it has business a lot. For instance, I was thinking that as one man I could do everything myself. One of the days, a friend of mine reached out to me and said, Kofi, let's talk about your business. And she's my personal coach, even though she's my friend. We always have to x-ray our businesses. And she said, okay, have you put this in place? Have you put this in place? At first, if you come to take a course at Idea and you miss a session, you have to wait until that session is coming up again in another that particular course is coming up again in another session before you can take it. So she told me, no, I will vary the student in terms of time of training, in terms of completion of course and all that. So why don't I record all the courses? So once students finish a class, I drop in the recorded session also, so that those who miss that particular class, because some miss on contingent reasons, so that they can actually go through and then do whatever they will have to do, the assignment, all of that at home. Now, this is a system, and this is a process. So students don't need to even come back to me again and say, sir, can I have 1 hour of you so that you take me through this? So now I can use that 1 hour that I will spend on students to do another thing, because they already have videos that they can watch and all that. So processes and systems are very important, and I must give it to Sikemi on that. you can't just do business without processes. You cannot putting down systems. For me, I've suffered. How will I say it? I've suffered from not putting systems down in my business in time past, where even business transactions that had to pass through you give it in confidence or in trust to a manager, and the person messed up without you having an oversight of that. So now I am very vigilant in terms of systems in place, what comes in, what goes out, how is it spent, and order. It's very, very important. Then the use of technology, as she talked about, and even bringing it to what my students learn at Idea, they come for specific skill. Now, when they come for a specific skill, like those taking digital marketing course, I have to make sure that they learn the skill themselves. So if you are learning a skill, before you can even have that skill as a service for someone else as an entrepreneur, I want them to, I make them to have it as a prototype. So for instance, somebody comes for my class and then I tell the person, what is your passion? And the person says, oh, my passion is to maybe to launch a food business. I said, okay, fine. Then the skills you are coming to learn at Idea, which is digital marketing, you are going to apply it by starting a prototype of that business, even in this training.
Okay.
So
it's
for instance,
practical.
somebody says, I'm starting a maybe a computer electronics business. You have to do the branding of this business in the training. So every course we are taking, you are using that business idea as a prototype before you can say that I'm going out there to offer this as service to people. So want to see how perfect you will do that business. So I tell my students sometimes, you learn digital entrepreneurship, go out there, or digital market, go out there, offer this as a service. Tell us how much you have made from them from that. So some of them go and come back with money.
Okay.
And they say, oh, they were able to at least get services from these people. They made this amount of money and all that. Others don't. Is you can't get 100% people with the desire to do the same thing. You can at least once, for me, even if 70% of the student and more than 70% of the student go through that process, build up, everybody build up their business, but those who come with much results are more than 70%, and it's okay for me. We keep improving day by day, where we looking at even students coming together to even form a team and form a company. So that's the next phase I'm trying to take the students into. So it doesn't matter. Now I have two students, one from Sierra Leone, one from Nigeria, and they've linked up and started their business.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just about, you can't get 100% all of them doing the same thing. Some of them just want to learn the skill to apply it in their company. That's the current company they are working with. Some want to launch a business. Some just want to learn the skill for the skill's sake. But one of the key things that I've always been happy about is about that today is Saturday. Exactly a week today, I was on my way to the village, and one of my students reached out to me. That's how can I receive payment from trainers from other parts of Africa? Then I said, what is happening? He said, sir, I've launched my master class on training people on Canva, how they can use Canva. So because of that, I've gotten students from other parts of Africa and they want to take the course. How do I receive their payment? So I have to give him the guideline of how he can set up on Seller, how he can receive either on through other, what do you call it, like Western Union, through direct mobile transfer and all that. And he was very happy about it. But I didn't end that. After telling him, I now told him the whole idea, I am just proud of you, and the whole idea team is proud of you. And I showed it to one of the idea instructors who was with me, and he was so much excited. Why? Because at least the young man who just paid 130 cedis to come for a training is now making times 10 that on just a master class. So if such happens and we see it playing out. Other people who are running business have also shared their testimonies of how the training has helped them in their businesses and all that. And that is the joy.
Yeah.
We are still trying to perfect things. We cannot say we are 100% in terms of the programs we do that's offering the service, but at least greater percentage of the intake or the students come with testimonies. Even those who cannot launch business still have an idea that this is
Yeah.
what they can
Do. Okay. Awesome. 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 Wow. That is cool. That makes it very, very practical. Translates the skill to value for the business. Thank you for sharing that. Vivian says, well done, Shikemi and John. According to Shikemi, I must standardize my business processes. Well noted. So I'm watching from FCT Abuja, Nigeria, a broadcast journalist, writer, and voiceover artist. Thank you for joining us, Vivian. Good to see you. Vivian said, I'm also an entrepreneur in interior design and decoration at Windsor Interiors. Our niche is mainly window blinds installation of all types. Awesome. So I know there are probably some people in the audience who have gone through the idea trainings. Please share your experience. Let's take a breather on this conversation. Breathe in, breathe out, and let's just take a quick break and come back in about 30 seconds. All right, welcome back. And this is Iwinate Africa. We are talking about digital small business. And I've been talking with Sikemi Tayo and John Kofi Annan. Been interesting insights on how to use technology to enhance your business, how to balance the craze for technology with process, how to translate skills into value in your business. If you're enjoying the conversation, please share it with someone and do introduce yourself if you've not already done so. So let's go back to our guests and ask a few more questions on this interesting conversation. All right, so Shikemi, let's talk about governance a bit. Let's talk about what we know as governance. That's probably is beyond the reach of some small businesses, but let's ask ourselves. Somebody said that Europe is regulating, America is innovating. Where do you see the balance between innovation and governance when a company is growing to the level where they need governance? Balance between the rapid adoption of technology and some kind of control around how things are done. Share with us.
Okay. That's a good question. And since a lot of our audience are smaller businesses, let me start by defining what governance is in this context for me. Governance is a fancy way of saying, how do I ensure that my business does not end bankrupt, right? Because at the heart of it, we want to make money. When you think about it, well, we all started a business. Yes, we want to solve problems, but we also want to make money. So think of governance as those things that you will put in place to ensure that you don't run into trouble as a business. And it could be different things. It could be finances, it could be people, it could even be suppliers, which is very interesting because most of us don't think about suppliers. We just think about us as a business, right? So that said, if governance is putting things in place to ensure that my business does not go bankrupt or run into problem, at what point should you then think about governance? I would say at the beginning. And this is why. Most of the time, we look at governance as some really big thing that we have to employ somebody for. We have to do PowerPoint presentation. We have to put different people in different boxes. Yes, it is that, but it is also as simple as today. For those of you that that have doors in your house, that if you don't have the key, you cannot come back in. A lot of us have those kind of doors, right? The first time I moved into my place, I knew the carpenter had told me that, or the contractor had told me that this door you have to have your key, right? And I was like, okay, I hear you, right? The first thing, immediately he told me, the first thing I did was I took the copies and I gave it to two people, one nearer to me, one a bit farther. That's the first thing I did, right? And then one day, I can't remember what happened. Somebody came to drop something for me, and then I just locked myself out. Luckily, I had my phone with me, so I just called one of those guys. I'm like, where are you? Tell me you're in Lagos. And I had to wait a couple of minutes for the person to bring my key. That for me is governance, because I already know that I have the kind of door that if I don't have my key, I'm going to get locked out. This is not the time to be praying that I'm not going to get locked out. That is not how it works in business. So for you, yeah, that is how it works. You have to put governance in place. So for somebody like a Vivian, it will look something like ensuring that she has different suppliers for window blinds. Because without blinds, she cannot decorate. So this is not the time to say, oh, my current supplier gave me loan at the start of my business. So it's a mentor to me. Therefore, I'm going to stay with that person for life. That is not how you do business. Then you have to have more than one supplier so that if something happens to that your main supplier, you have a backup, and you will be testing it occasionally. It's not like you will have a backup and you will not test whether the backup is pure. Occasionally, you'll be making requests for window blinds from that backup supplier to be checking the quality and also their delivery times. So that way, you know that, okay, you are ready for anything that can happen. In the case of the gentleman that is doing recycling, your recycling today, you might focus on one person. Maybe you have an arrangement with, say, Ebano, and say, I'm going to come and pick up your bottles or something from your nylons from because they have a lot of suppliers, and so they have a lot of nylons. I'm going to come and pick nylons from you. It's a good deal. What if something happens and the Ebano changes their Oga at the top? So you're no longer eligible for picking up recycle. What is going to happen to your business? So that is how I want us to look at governance. Don't look at governance as one big fancy word that only people that have hammered should be concerned about. No. Even as small as your business is, you need to start to put things in place to ensure that you do not, I don't know, I keep trying to say bush, but that's not it. But I don't want to use that word on this call. You will not run into trouble, right? So that's how I would define governance. Now, back to your question. When is the right time for a company to start about governance, especially balancing it with innovation? I still pose that governance should be at the very beginning. It is now the scope of it that can change per the growth of the company. So like I talked about supplier, like I talked about my door, those are like small scenarios to a large extent. As you start to grow, you start to think about tax, like FIRS, LIRS, like those things start to matter because you cannot be found wanting. As you start to grow, you start to think about even the bank that you are using for your business. You can no longer use what's that one that you open account in 2 days, 2 hours. Those ones. You cannot be doing that again. You cannot be doing that again because yes, you cannot do that again because those ones may not even have governance. So if they go out of business today, they have carried your money.
Yeah.
And it has happened to me, and I'm speaking for experience, right? So there's governance on different levels, but always ensure that I would challenge you to always ask the question every 6 months to say, what do I need to do to ensure that this business does not go astray or this business does not go into bankruptcy? You are the expert of your business. I can only sit down here and tell you my experience and best practices. You know the things that can affect your business. So you must, so if a process that everybody must do on this call is to go to your calendar, right? And put it inside your calendar for people, especially for younger businesses, every 3 months on Saturday, 10 a.m. or 8 a.m. It's called business review session by myself, with myself. And on that, in that session, you will sit down, you ask yourself, how am I doing? What do I need to put in place? All of those things. The answers will come to you because you are the best person to tell us the answer, right? So that will be my counsel. If you're a bigger company that you've been around for 5 years, you have like different locations, then other things you can consider is one, as you start to scale. So as you start to go from Ghana to Nigeria, Nigeria to Ghana, Ghana to Sierra Leone, and back, then you have to pay more attention to governance because you are now a brand. You now have people that are depending on you to always be there. It's no longer business as usual. You cannot just send newsletter and say you are not doing again. Imagine Google sending us email today that Gmail is no longer doing. Like, can you imagine? Can you imagine the chaos that will happen in the entrepreneurial world, right?
Yes.
So that would be a good time to start to think about governance. As you are moving from country to country, then you have to start thinking about governance even more intently. Another scenario is when your stakeholder requirements change. How do I mean? Early last year, February, when when we had the cash, again, I'm in Nigeria, so when we had the cash crunch, no cash, the cash flow problem during election, and there was no cash. Do you know that thing changed a lot of business models in terms of even people that used to give credit before, people that used to collect money today and go and buy something tomorrow. Now everything had to change. Now at that point, all the stakeholders' expectation has changed, including your own. That's another time to look at governance again because you are adopting a new way of working. You need to make sure that this new way of working is not going to land you inside trouble, right? So that's number two. Another scenario is when you are having your business is getting more complex. Now there is a good thing to do a lot of things, but it comes with its downside. And the downside is that your business becomes complex. And complexity always births operational risk. You cannot, there is nowhere, I see as a certified and practicing black belt, which is the second to the highest level of process management and improvement, right? Complexity breeds errors and issues. And that is why even for people that have very complex systems, they have so when you think about the FBI, when you think about NASA, when you look at their protocols, you would have to be asking yourself, it's not just to enter inside the lobby. Why is there so much issue to enter this? Because they have a complex system. They can no longer assume that anybody coming into the lobby is just coming to say hi. You must explain why you're here. You must tell who you're coming to meet. You must tell your appointment. We must validate it with something. So you get the picture. So when you are expanding your business and your operations is getting more complex, before you used to sell just one item, now you're selling 10 items. And now you're not only selling 10 items, you're also matching half cup of item 1 with quarter cup of item 10. Then you have to start thinking about governance.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The more complex you become, the more you need to protect yourself. And Sikemi says, governance protects you from loss, and it doesn't have to be complicated. You just have to set the rules to say, this is how I now want to work. When your stakeholders change, stakeholders meaning whether it's the government or customers or even your employees, right? You need to put it in place. And governance touches on human resource governance, touches on things to avoid operational risk or mitigate operational risk, touches on taxation and so forth. So it's very important to think about. Thank you, Sikemi, for sharing that with us. Now we are almost out of time. We started the conversation by asking ourselves, why should digital matter to small businesses? And then we talked about that. If you came in late, you may want to go back to the recording to look at that. And I want to pick out at this stage those pillars that John told us about: finance, marketing, branding, um, and so forth, where he talked about the areas where a small business should consider when talking about going digital or digitalizing. So I'm going to come back to John to ask, where do you think we should start? If I'm a small business today and I need to say, I want to say, okay, I'm ready to go digital. Maybe I had a dream, maybe I'm just very excited and I just want to start going digital. Where do you think will be the most important? My budget constraints, my operational model and all that. Where do you think will be the most important place to start in terms of embracing digital ways of doing business? John, let's start with you.
Okay, sometimes I tell business entrepreneurs, start with what you have. Start with what you have. Start with the skills that you can afford personally, and start with what you can do. Don't necessarily say, oh, okay, as Sikemi said, you can't just wake up and say, oh, because somebody is on a premium plan, I must also go on premium. And all those go and waste money and nothing comes out of it. I remember the first time I went on LinkedIn because of this ramataz of, if you have premium attached to your this thing, some people view you some way. I said, okay, let me go premium. I went premium and I didn't see anything about premium.
Yeah.
So I just, once it expired, I just went off. So I began now to build based on what I have. What do I have? I can put out quality content. I can communicate value. So I started with that. And one of the key things that sparked my growth on LinkedIn, which is doing business professionally, I made a write-up on Tony Elumelu. Before then, I had like 14,000 followers. And I made a write-up on Tony Elumelu when they opened up a branch in Dubai. And after I made that write-up, he came to endorse the write-up. And within 2 weeks, my network sparked to 25,000.
Wow.
Got connected to all manner of people that matter across the continent. People reaching out because that endorsement alone. Now, did I have premium account? No. Then sometime last year, I made a post on the ECOWAS issues I encountered, and that post got viral, had over 11,000 likes and over 1,200 comments, over 1,200 shares, and or repost, and then that got also it got me into having like 35,000 followers. So now it is growing. So what do I mean? As an entrepreneur, don't be fast to say, oh, okay, I want to put up maybe ERP systems. So because of that, I've gone to spend, I'll tell you an example. I've gone to spend maybe $100,000 putting up these systems. Meanwhile, you have not done a business to sell even 5,000.
Yeah.
So start with what you have. First of all, do your packaging well as a business. Whatever service you render, master it well. Whatever product you are selling, package it well. Get your target market. Get the right channel of social media or social media marketing you will use. Something for me, I don't go on Instagram. Why? Because my audience is not there. My audience is on LinkedIn. My audience is on Facebook. Facebook, small. But basically, my audience is on LinkedIn. So I spend more time trying to sell myself on LinkedIn, sell my product on LinkedIn, rather than go to maybe Instagram to say, okay, I want to do this. No. So find the right audience, the right channels for your product, and then just be there and be consistent. One thing is that when people see the consistency of what you're doing, even if the person is not interested from the beginning, but they've seen that you are doing this thing over and over and over and over and over and over, they get interested. There are people 4 years ago, I marketed my course to them. They didn't take the course. But today they are taking the course. Why? Because they've seen that it's something that I've been doing over the time. So if they are looking for an expert, they should come back to me.
Mm.
So
Beautiful.
just be consistent in your product value and always try to improve on your product value or your service delivery. And also don't, as an entrepreneur, don't take criticisms as negative things. When somebody criticizes your product, go back and sit down and make sure that you bring out the best. It's not only about even doing business digital, because sometimes you also have to reach out to physical people. Like yesterday, I went out sharing flyers. It's not every time that you'll be on the internet. There are people who don't even know LinkedIn. How will you reach them? You reach them through radio, through TV, through flyers, through the newspaper. So find, as an entrepreneur, just don't be rigid to yourself and say, okay, fine, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm not going anywhere. No. Find other frontiers that you can sell your business, find a new prospect for your business. And you see, a business without sales, which brings in money, is no business. I've always said that for you to talk about your business, there must be at least money coming in. Business growth is about customers, is about money. So the more you have customers who patronize you, the more you get income. And the more you get income, the more you can take care and expand your business.
Awesome. Wow.
Yes.
That's a lot. Now we need to come for this course now, and I'm going to have to be the manager that will collect the money, right? You know, I like that. And that is very interesting. You see, John has said quite a lot here, and he's emphasized the fact that being digital, starting with digital, is starting from where you are, from what you have. And then I think he laid a lot of emphasis, deliberately or otherwise, on marketing. How do you bring in the money, right? And that balance between digital and in-person approaches, or more advanced digital approaches and less advanced digital approaches as an entrepreneur who wants to be flexible, because you keep your eye on the ball. The ball is money. It's as simple as that. You know, the ball is money. Whether that money is coming in from customers or from donors or from investors, the bottom line is money. I'm going to switch to Sikemi to ask the same question. Where do we start? We have a question from Yetunde. We're also going to think about it and come back to that. What are the key things small business should consider to remain profitable and sustainable? And we're going to digitize this question, or digitalize this question, answer in the context of the conversation. Kathy also says criticism is part of business growth. Thank you for that submission. So, Sikemi, where should we start as a small business going digital? Then you can talk about the Yetunde's question.
Okay, start with the money. That's
Yes.
my view. Right.
Thank you.
So, and the reason why I say that is because, John has done a good work of establishing how you can market. But marketing has its place, and it's usually when you want to sell more. Usually, for most people, your first few revenue comes from people that you already know, people that already trust you. So you can't start a business today and then the next thing is that you're going into LinkedIn or Facebook to start to market without having tested it, without having done some version of it. It's not impossible, but it's not common either. So assuming that you've sold already and you've already have some people that have patronized you, but you want to do more, and that's where I see John's recommendation coming really nice, because you can then go and then even talk about your story, your learnings and your successes, right? But one of the things I see that most small businesses don't do, they don't track money. If I tell you how much did you make last month, they'll give me an estimate. How much did you spend last month? Maybe an estimate. How much of the money have you used to buy shoe? Then we start to smile. So one of the things that I recommend is schedule and I'm a very practical person. I will tell you what to do. I will tell you how to do it. Every month, you must have a 2-hour session with yourself where you will sit down, open Excel sheets, and translate all the money you got into that business. Whether they sent it to your private account, whether they sent it to your business account, it doesn't matter. You put it on in one column, and then you look at all the things that you spent money on. You put it in another column. And then you start to ask yourself, am I spending more than I'm earning? Now, because a lot of us always do business alongside our 9 to 5, the loss that we are making in the business is not always that clear on time because we use our own 9 to 5 money to fund that business. Your money will tell you whether your business is a good business or not. That's the first thing. You can know from your money because a lot of us, the first version of our business is our ego. I've been there. I've done that. It's what we think people need. And we're like so passionate about that. We're like, I believe you need this thing, you must collect it, you must buy it. But the reality is that people don't need what you're selling, right? And that is why I would always stand by Indomie noodles. The simplicity of that meal. People have come with different versions. It is not good for your health, 0 calories. I'm a health. By the way, I'm a health. I'm a fitness coach. So when it comes to food and nutrition and stuff like that, I can talk about that for days. But even I am aware of the problem noodles Indomie is solving. Which other food do you have that you can cook in 5 minutes? One, and you can garnish with different orishirishi that will even make it can be small man food and big man food all in 5 minutes. Do you understand? So there is a basic need of speed to eat that Indomie is solving for, or noodles is solving for. And that's why it's okay. No matter the version, somebody will buy it. Right? You need to start to think of your business that way. You need to start to think of your business as something that solves problems. Now, so for me, the money is a very good way to know whether your business is doing well or not. So you must be intentional. It would be nice if you have a system that automates it, but even if it's not automated, what I did before I automated my own was to sit down every month, open Excel sheets, and start to check alerts one by one and say, Kenneth bought 5 this thing, like that, like that, like that. And I also looked at all the things I was spending money on. And I realized that 2 things. Generally, I wasn't making money, but then sometimes it's also okay because you're just starting. But the other thing that I found very insightful was that there was a part of my business that was doing better than the other. For most of us, we always sell more than one thing or more than one service. But you realize that there is one service of that your bundle that tends to do better than the others. Zero in on that. So when you now start to do marketing, don't be spreading yourself and be talking about the other 3 that are not bringing you money. You will now zero in on that one that is bringing you money. You will talk about it from different angles, from testimonial, from solution, from pain, from desire. So a lot of us, this business thing, I know we always, to be honest, we go in for money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as you are looking for the money, you have to be gaining wisdom on how to consistently make that money. Using Vivian as an example, and I was going to come to your question, how to be sustainable. How to be sustainable is make sure that you are selling the right thing. I know that you mentioned that, maybe I saw your introduction, I smiled. Because your introduction was that you are an interior and something designer company. But then you now went to the second line. You say you mostly install blinds. Why are you not a blinds company? Why are you carrying interior? Because the moment I see interior, I assume you decorate the whole house. But you now went a step further to say, I do blind. Let your marketing communication reflect just that line to say, we install blinds. Trust me, you need to make your marketing so crisp that people must see themselves in you immediately. If I read this thing and there's always people consulting firm, I am a consultant. Even me, I struggle sometimes with the English because we want to say a lot of things. I help companies to do this one. At the end of the day, people will read it and they will not see themselves in you. So you have to also learn to be very clear. You can be a digital marketer, but who are you doing it for? You can be a Canva designer. Who are you doing it for? You can be a virtual assistant. Who are you doing it for? Your customers must immediately see themselves in your marketing. And the only way to know that is to validate the things that are bringing in your money, not the things that make us look good. Because I understand we all want to look good. We want to be like, I sell this, I sell that, I sell that. But the reality is, it's probably one or two things that is bringing you money. Put all your energy on those two things and make more money from them. That would be my closing remark or my response to that
Thank you
question.
so much. Thank you so much. So focus on what is working. That's how you are sustainable, because that is what brings in the money. Focus on what is working. Identify it. By the time you even get to the level of I want to market what is working. John, you want to add a few thoughts to that on how do I make sure? That was about the key question here. How do I make sure? What do I consider to remain profitable and sustainable? And I think you touched on it earlier. Focus on the money. But are there any other tips we need to look at to make sure as digital business, we're sustainable and we're profitable? Your final thoughts generally.
My network has been troubling me.
Yeah.
So what is looking at to remain profitable and sustainable. One of the key things to look at is make sure that the product you are selling. There are people who start a business. Maybe they are selling paint. They realize that one particular paint is not going. They automatically go and switch to another thing, another product. Like you can't find them in one business per time. So, but business is about consistency. So many times you might start a business, that product might not be selling as you want. It doesn't mean that you should stop that business. Sometimes you might start a business and that business might not be solving the needs of the society. Remember, once your business is not solving problems, there's no way you can make profit and you can sustain. Once your business is not solving problems, and you are not giving value to the society, there's no way you can make profit. Value gives value. So once you are giving value based on your product and money will come. And when money comes and you manage the money, as Sikemi said, you will be able to make profit and be able to sustain the business. Remember, business growth is not even about, there are businesses that make profit and at the end of the day, they owe some money somewhere that they did not capture it. Or there are businesses that possibly had more sales, but one way or the other, they don't have systems in place, and that business, anything that happened to that business, they can collapse at a point in time. Now, when I look at COVID time, a lot of businesses folded. That was the time many business entrepreneurs should have sat down and said, what went wrong? Profitability is very important, but in all the right processes are in place before you can even think of sustainability. There are people who do business, they don't know, as Sikemi said, they don't know the ups and downs of the business. For instance, I know the times training pick up. I know the times trainings don't pick up. So the times training don't pick up, what do I do? It's business model. You have to understand these things. For instance, people have gone, what do you call it? You have to bring in new products, new innovations in your business also. Don't be static that, okay, this is what I'm doing and I'll stay with this forever. No. For instance, sometimes I want to get more people to enroll into training. I organize free or pro bono trainings for businesses, for organizations. I also reach out to people who already can sponsor students into the training. So at the end of the day, like Second has been wonderful sponsoring young people into these training programs I do for students in tech. Why? Because of empowering young people. And that's the same way I reach out to other people. So even if he himself is not buying my product.
Wow, sorry about that. Frequent breaks. I'm sure we're getting
The whole thing
gist.
boils down to focus on business, product, or services that bring in the money. And when the money comes, let there be processes that will sustain that money, that will make more profit.
All right. Thank you so much, John. That was
so sorry about that. So that is how. So put your best into the business, and then.
All right, that was very insightful thoughts from John as well. I'm going to just read what Nuruddin has shared with us. I would like to recommend waveapps.com. I hope that HTTP has an S if it's doing if it's doing what do you call it, financial management. It's free and easy to use finance tracking tool for your business, generating invoices, tracking expenses, tracking income, simple dashboard, and insight to all data collected. So please confirm that the HTTP also has an S before you use the platform. Thank you so much. So we've been speaking with Sikemi Tayo and John Kofi Annan. We're just going to wrap it up. Because of time. I hope it's been useful. Yes. Wave apps. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, Sikemi just notified me that Wave apps has discontinued in Nigeria. So maybe they're in Ghana. Yeah. Thank you, John, for that wonderful submission. We have to close out soon. I hope you've gotten value if you're from outside there. So we have Zoho Books in Nigeria. Of course, it's not completely free. I think Flutterwave also does a little bit of financial management and, of course, QuickBooks. So you can explore all those ones. We had training on QuickBooks last year and earlier. That was just last year. So if you want to explore that. I think John also does QuickBooks trainings. So there are quite a lot of platforms you can make use of. So if you're out there, just tell us in a few minutes before we wrap up, how did it go? Did you gain value? Drop something in the comments, final questions, and then I'll give in turns 30 seconds each. 30 seconds. Make 2 sentences and give us your final thoughts. Sikemi, 30 seconds.
All right. Thank you, Kenneth. I just want to say well done to everybody that is out there trying to do business. As a former 9 to 5 and slash business owner, I understand that it's not easy, right? But what I'm going to leave you with is that direction is always superior to speed. I'm going to say that again. Direction is always, not sometimes, is always superior to speed. So it's okay to spend some time having direction than rushing ahead. There's nothing more painful than making the mistakes that people that have gone ahead of you has made. I feel like you should be making fresh mistakes, not the ones that have already been made, and there are already things that you can do differently. But well done, and best of luck in your business. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Sikemi. That's awesome. John's network has been breaking a bit, so we are going to let him in one more time to share his thoughts. So, John, if you can hear us, 30 seconds, final thoughts for anyone listening and anyone who will listen. Just in 30 seconds, your last thoughts for this conversation. Go ahead. All right. Thank you very much for being out there. We appreciate you so much. And we're going to just close out. See you on the next edition of Iwinati Africa. If you are joining us for the first time, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share the link if it's useful. Let other people gain value. Have a wonderful rest of your week.